Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here in June. A very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. We are looking back at the 100th episode of Smallville, Reckoning. This is the episode we lost Jonathan Kent, aka the brilliant John Schneider, who played the iconic adoptive father of Clark Kent. For 5, or should we say, 5 and a bit seasons, basically. I always felt very, very strongly that Jonathan Kent's death is important in kind of carrying Clark forward to his destiny. I think it works in Superman the movie. It almost definitely, it does work in Man of Steel. And it always was going to work in Smallville if done properly. Now, I think they did a grand job with his death. I just feel that his death was too soon. Personally, if it was me, I would have killed him in the final season because it just amps up the emotional stuff, doesn't it, for him going on to become Superman. And I think they did act too quickly, and that's a shame because John Schneider never wanted to leave Smallville. He loved Jonathan Kent. He loved the fact that, people loved the Kent family dynamic, and he loved the father figure element of Jonathan Kent as well. But Screen Rant have done a very interesting article about this, so I think we should give it a read. This article is from Nicholas Raymond. How Smallville made Jonathan Kent's death more tragic than the comics. Smallville made Jonathan Kent's death even more tragic than the comics. When it killed off John Schneider's character, Smallville shocked viewers in the middle of Season 5 by ending an episode with the death of Clark Kent's adoptive father and role model in several versions of the Superman story. Jonathan's demise is an important part of the Man of Steel's origin story, but the way it was handled in the show was much different. Jonathan Kent's Smallville story came to an end in Smallville's landmark 100th episode, Reckoning. His Season 5 arc focused on the character getting into politics to help the community. Urged on by his friend and Kansas State Senator Jack Jennings, played by Schneider's Dukes of Hazzard co-star Tom Wopat, Jonathan was convinced to run for Jack's Senate seat after a scandal forced him to step down. Jonathan ran against Lex Luthor, Michael Rosenbaum, who was relentless in the attempts to discredit Jonathan. In the end, Jonathan won the election. On the night of his victory, Jonathan was confronted by Lionel Luthor, John Glover, who revealed that he knew Clark's secret. The argument upset Jonathan so much that he suffered a fatal heart attack. Now, we discussed this the other day, didn't we? And this is the whole thing about Smallville's Jonathan Kent. Although he is a great father, he's a father we all want. We've become much better men with a father like this, and the example that it's set for us. He did have flaws. He wasn't perfect and he wasn't flawless. And he did have a temper on him. And that was always there from Season 1 until his very last episode. And I love the consistency there from our Miles. Jonathan dying of a heart attack is often how his story ends, both in the comics and in the movies. But in the case of the Superman prequel series, the circumstances behind it weren't so simple. His death was much more tragic for Clark than it was in previous versions. That's because in Smallville, Jonathan's death was a direct result of Clark's mistakes. In the Season 5 premiere, Clark made a deal with Jor-El, voiced by Terrence Stamp, and went back on it. For that reason, he was stripped of his powers as punishment. And the powerless Clark was killed 2 episodes later. Jor-El revived him, but swore that someone close to Clark would be exchanged for his life. Interestingly, that person was actually fated to be Lana Lang, Christine Krug. After revealing his secret to her and proposing, Lana died in a car accident. Clark went to tell Jor-El and convince him to let him undo it with time travel. But despite warnings that there would be consequences, Clark went back and prevented Lana's death, only to find out that all he really did was trade Jonathan for Lana. Imagine that. As a son, how do you live with that? Powerful stuff. Clark's mother, Martha, Annette O'Toole, tried to help him deal with the pain and the guilt by telling him Jonathan had lived a long life and he would have accepted what happened. But Clark's responsibility for Jonathan's death went back even further than Season 5. In the Smallville Season 2 finale, Clark intentionally put on a red kryptonite ring, which twisted his personality to bring him back twisted his personality. To bring him back home, Jonathan had to get Jor-El to give him Kryptonian powers. Having these physically taxing abilities caused him to develop heart problems. That's one more reason why the heart attack was Clark's fault. In the span of one day, Clark found all the happiness he wanted with Lana, had it taken away from him, and on top of all that, he lost his father. Lana was restored at least, but there was nothing that could be done about all the guilt he was dealing with. Aside from Chloe, Alice and Mac and Martha, the people around Clark believed that he was going through the loss of a parent, but his suffering went so much deeper than anybody really understood. Jor-El was right when he said that Jonathan's death would prove to be Clark's darkest hour. And it was. And kind of try not to well up here, because Smallville is a very emotional thing to me, because it dealt with my hero in such a fabulous way. It took it seriously. They wasn't messing about here in terms of Clark Kent and Lex Luthor. They did a very, very serious story. And this that I've just read out to you, I haven't seen Smallville before, you should go and rewatch the whole 10 series. Special show, and this is why I keep on arguing that the streaming era of TV isn't superior to network television. Back in the early days, of course, Smallville was on the WB network before CBS and Warner Brothers merged to turn it into the CW, and we know what the network became after that, which is really disappointing. I think Smallville and the people running it fought hard to keep it on, the high-quality show it was under the WB, but it was tough for Alan Miles, the show creators and the showrunners from season 1 to 7, and in the end they were driven out, and that was a big shame. But it was still an okay show from seasons 8 to 10, but it wasn't the great show that it once was. There's no question about that. But there's some great episodes in the final 3 seasons. Let's not make no mistake. But this is why it's so emotional. They did everything emotionally. Smallville's character dynamics and emotions were as powerful as the superhero battles that Clark had with meteor-infected people, with Doomsday, and all the characters, Brainiac. There's just so many things they did with Smallville that looked awesome, but that felt awesome as well. This really was a special show. Smash the like button if you're a fan of Smallville and comment down below. Like, share and subscribe. I'll be back tomorrow with more DC Dailies. See you again soon.